Have you ever lost sleep because you made the wrong decision and wished you could undo something that you said or did and have a second chance? Are you ever left with that sinking feeling as you think about the mistake you made and what could have been if you'd made a different decision? I'm sure that when Harry got married, he thought all his dreams had come true and expected his fairy tale to have a happy ending. But 2 years later, after losing almost everything that defined who he was, the decision not to listen to his family, and in particular to William, may live with him for the rest of his life. So today, let's talk about regret, what causes it, and whether Harry regrets marrying Meghan Markle. Now, if you're new to my channel, I'm Sue Blackhurst and I've been writing and delivering psychology-based training courses for the past 23 years. Now, every week I look at everyday issues that we all face and relate them to high-profile celebrities, generally Harry and Meghan, to help you relate to the topics that I discuss. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so now and then hit that notification bell so you are first to see my new weekly videos. As you never know, my next video could answer that relationship dilemma in your life. I just want to give a little shout out, a huge thank you to all of those who bought me a coffee. I now have my new mug, and yes, you can get yours below. And a second thing, I totally agree with you all who say my room is quite dull, boring and plain, and could I get some decoration in? It was suggested to get some flowers, but I think it needs a little bit more than a vase of flowers. So all I can say for now is watch this space. Now, I love the film The Dead Poets Society and the motto Carpe Diem. So when we're faced with life's changing decisions, should we seize the day and live in the moment without ever looking back? Or should we stop and listen to others' thoughts and opinions on what they think that we ought to do? Well, the answer's not actually in the decision that we finally make. It lies in how we deal with the consequences and how much we are either able to accept or regret the outcome that we've created. The media's got one job, and that's to find a story. So we don't know whether to believe that Harry has never been happier. He's finally free of the royal constraints and he's living the dream in Canada. Or whether he's deeply unhappy and trapped in his marriage, feeling very alone and that there is no way out. So the question that nobody is currently asking Harry is, do you regret marrying Meghan Markle? When we have regrets, we enter this negative emotional state where we begin to blame ourselves for bad outcomes in our lives. Now, these outcomes generally relate to our education, our career choice, our love life, our parenting skills, and who we are as people. But whichever aspect that we look at, we all have hopes, dreams and ambitions. And if they don't always go to plan, then our thought processes can lead us to feeling a sense of loss or sorrow at what might have been, or wishing we could undo a previous choice that we made. But the danger here is that regret can negatively control our mood and make us feel miserable, as this self-blame also makes us feel guilty for making the bad decision, causing us to spend all of our time focusing on what could have been and the words, if only. So, in other words, regret is that sinking feeling when we realise or believe that our present situation would be so different if only we had made a different decision. So regret is tied to decisions, and it's a comparison between two different possible outcomes. Now, one has been the chosen outcome and one is the non-chosen outcome. So regret for a chosen outcome is a decision you made to marry that person, meaning that you see the end of the movie and you know what happens. You're in an unhappy marriage and you end up feeling that, you just shouldn't have married that person in the first place. But regret for the non-chosen outcome is when you regret not marrying that person, and therefore you never see the end of the movie and actually know what the outcome could have been. So whatever the current situation with Harry and Meghan, what I think we can be sure of is their long line of actions and non-actions, all of which must be causing them both elements of regret. Because if they had gone to see Thomas Markle before the wedding, would the outcome have been any different? Because their action or chosen decision was not to go and see him and not to offer him any media support, a decision that actually caused a whole host of negative repercussions. And I would hope that there are some elements of regret at the media coverage, let alone the breakdown of the father-daughter relationship. But what we don't know is whether the outcome would have been even better or even worse if they had spent time with Meghan's father prior to getting married, or if he'd walked her down the aisle. So, do they regret their conscious decision to ignore Meghan Markle's father, or do they regret that they will never know how different their life would have been if they had included him in the family? But what I think is particularly interesting here is which type of regret causes the most disappointment and self-blame. Is it the regrets about things we have done, our actions, or the regrets about things we didn't do, our inactions? Well, this actually changes depending upon the time that has elapsed since the regretted decision was made. In the short term, we tend to feel more regret about our actions, the stupid things that we've done, said, or even bought. But in the long run, we feel more regret over our inactions, like the love that we never pursued. And this means that the regrets about the here and now tend to fade. We just get over it and we move on. But the regrets about long-standing decisions, like the one that got away, tend to stay with us forever. So, looking at Harry now, he could potentially and initially regret the outcome of the decisions that he's just made. The decision to move to Canada, to leave the royal family behind and all the military and charity work, losing the HRH titles and maybe around the loss of his royal role. However, he may also have regrets about the things that he didn't do or his non-actions. What would have happened if they had not taken action against the press so soon? What would life be like if they had been more open and honest about the birth of Archie and allowed the world to see him before their trip to South Africa? What would life be like if they listened to the negative press and adapted their behaviour to raise their public profile? So, does Harry ever sit and regret the past 2 years and wonder what life would have been like if Meghan had simply fit in with his family? But of all the regrets I'd like to ask Harry, I do wonder if his greatest non-action regret is what would have happened if he had married someone else. Cressida or Chelsea or any of the other women that he dated. What would Harry's life have been like if he hadn't met Meghan? And the sad thing really here is that Harry, or any of us for that matter, will never know the outcome of this non-action because it's a regret that will stay with him for the rest of his life. It's the relationship that was badly timed, or the girl he thought he couldn't leave royal life for. But this deep-seated regret only leads to further frustration because post-decisional feedback on some non-actions can lead to at least give closure. Because if you don't buy a lottery ticket and the numbers you use every week come up, you regret not buying the ticket because you know the outcome and you kick yourself for not doing it. Or if, say, you missed booking that last room for your dream holiday and then saw that it rained every day, you have no regrets as it was a good decision in the end. But never knowing the outcome leaves a huge unanswered void in your life. So for Harry, the questions of would life have been different if he'd not married Meghan, or if they had handled their relationship any different from the start, will never be answered. So Harry will never find out how happy or unhappy he would have been if he had married Cressida or Chelsea. And it's that constant feeling of what if that can lead to anxiety and even depression. So if we regret either actions or non-actions, our minds tend to ruminate on this self-blame, and it's this inner belief that makes us feel that it's all our fault. And it's that belief that prevents us from re-engaging with life and sees the start of mental health problems. And what's really worrying for Harry is that the impact of regret can result in chronic stress and the inability to recover from stressful life events, something that can last for months, years, or even a lifetime. For someone like Harry, now if there is any truth in the stories about him wanting to return to the UK, the danger lies in the fact that he may believe that all the opportunities that existed before marriage and weren't taken advantage of are now lost. Because some opportunities we can take up at any stage of our life, the regret of not going to university at 18, for example, can still be done at 50. But a lost romance is far less likely to be possible. However, Charles and Camilla did succeed in showing the world that you should never give up on the love of your life, and the negative press that Camilla received makes the comments surrounding Meghan seem quite endearing. But Charles and Camilla took their time. They listened to advisors and actually worked at gaining our support rather than demanding it. And I'm sure that looking back, even with all the abuse thrown at them both, they have no regrets on getting back together. So for Harry, who knows whether he'll live happily ever after in Canada or one day return and end up with an old flame back in the UK. I suspect that at the moment he's unable to consider the future until he can make sense out of the past. I hope he can move on from any regrets that are based upon his recent actions and decisions, and that he's not struggling with the lifelong regrets of what could have been, as those are the type of regrets that cause so many people to break down. So a huge thank you to everyone who has enabled me to spend more time on my channel by buying me a coffee. I will be forever grateful. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share, you know the works, and I will see you next time.